Okay, my name is Ron Sims, and we have some time to be informal, which is what we want to do. So what I want to do is find out about you, and then you can find out some about me, and we can talk about mentoring, and we can talk about finding mentors and how to be a mentee and what to look for in a mentor. How about if we find out what you're studying, what's your area? Fish. PhD. Great. Thank you. Yes. What? Okay. Yeah. Instructional tech. I see. Good. Thank you. Yes. Your name. Environmental. Okay. Great. Masters. Yeah. Great. Yes. Nice variety. Lots of variety. Okay. Great. Yes.
I study in computer science. Yeah,
Master's computer science. Super. Yes.
Ronnie, and my last semester of a master's in public health, and my focus is domestic violence and child abuse policy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I'm Krista Terrell, and I'm actually a graduate program coordinator in the psychology department.
Oh, super good for you. Wow, Krista, good to meet you. Yeah. Cool. Okay, Aaron.
I'm Evan Danes, and this is my first year in the Rehabilitation Counselor Supervision and Education doctoral program.
Super. Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, I'm Steve, fifth year chemistry PhD student.
Super. Yes. Soon to enter the workforce.
Soon to enter the workforce.
Yes.
I'm Carissa, first year speech language pathology masters.
Speech pathology, first year masters. Okay. So at least we can tap the people in here.
We have a few comments of people saying what program they're in as well.
Great. Okay, let's take that.
Yeah,
Can
so we have,
hear?
they have put it in the chat, so I'm just going to read it.
You go right ahead. Yeah.
So we have a doctoral student in the Teal Cultural Studies. We have someone in Human Resources, someone doing a master's in Financial Economics, someone doing a PhD in Clinical Counseling, someone who's doing their master's in Landscape Architecture, another who's doing a PhD in Biology. We have a master's student for Environmental Engineering, a PhD in Nutrition. We have someone doing a master's of Human Resource and a master's of Wildlife Biology. And then the last one is a master's of Biological Engineering.
Whoa. Thank you very much. Great. So the variety across master's, PhD, and across disciplines, which is what the School of Graduate Studies is trying to enhance and appreciate and share knowledge with everyone. Okay, so I'm Ron here. I have my bachelor's in biology from University of Dayton in Ohio. Then I got inspired. I was the first Earth Day participant way back in 1970 and went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina in public health to get involved in saving the planet from environmental kind of public health. And then I went to work for Bayer, the German company, because I wanted to get industrial experience, and worked in South Carolina for Bayer for a couple of years and decided I need to go back and get a degree in engineering because I was working for them with reactors and I didn't know how to design the reactors. So I went back and got a second master's in engineering. And then I went back and worked with the United Nations in the State Department for a year, looking at trying to introduce technology to developing countries where it was technologically appropriate, something that you could leave the developing country and they could actually use. So that was an international program, and I got to go to the State Department and the United Nations and learn more about industry. Then I went to Research Triangle Institute in North Carolina because we were then in the 70s in another energy crisis. So I worked at Research Triangle Institute under a chemical engineer, looking at how to get coal into gas and clean up that gas and use the gas because the US is the Saudi Arabia of coal. So we have all this coal, but the coal's dirty. So we worked to try to change the coal into gas and then clean up the gas. That's when I learned, okay, there's a lot, we got gas clean, but we created a humongous amount of toxic wastewater and toxic residues. So the engineer, the chemical engineer I work with inspired me, and I went back to North Carolina State, or went there for a PhD in biological engineering, looking at energy, which is where we are today, aren't we? It kind of goes back and back and back and forth. So I ended up with 3 graduate degrees. Therefore, I have a lot to share with you. I have a lot to share. The path was very windy, but very interesting. So I want to share some of those lessons that I learned with you and some perspectives. So I'm passing it forward. How about that? With the idea that you can kind of get an idea of some of the episodes and some of the experiences that I went through with 3 different graduate advisors, and what I learned from them and what I can pass on to you as maybe just some hints, things to do, things to look for. How's that? You good? And then I came here. That was in 1982. So this previous week, this is Monday, last week, we had the employee recognition luncheon. There are 4 of us at USU who've been here 40 years. So I'm one of 4 that's been here since 1982. So I came in 1982 expecting to stay for 2 or 3 years. Because everything else, I stayed about 2 or 3 years, then I left, I got another degree or went back to industry. But we've been, my wife and I, she has 2 masters. I met her at Chapel Hill. She got her master's with me in public health. And then she got another master's in soils and wastewater treatment. And she is now in charge of the whole septic tank program for the state of Utah. So we both taught in academics and in the academic world, but also share the industry kind of world, because she does a lot of outreach to communities all over the state that are trying to figure out how to treat their wastewater and not contaminate groundwater. Anyways, so that's our kind of background that I'm coming at you for this presentation. How's that? So here, I'm gonna try this out, see if we can talk and do slides at the same time. So I obviously can't. I'm hitting this down. Let's see, here we go. How's that? So that's me again. Yes, this background. What is this? The technology that I'm working with now with my mentees to build technologies to treat wastewater by growing algae, and then take the algae and make bioplastics, biodiesel, biocrude, biofertilizer, other types of products. So I'm involved with a center here that's recognized by the state called the Sustainable Waste to Bioproducts Engineering Center. So I look for waste as a source of chemicals, and then I look to use microorganisms to transform those chemicals into valuable bioproducts that will biodegrade and add value to society and protect public health at the same time. So I'm trying to combine these 3 graduate degrees in engineering industry. And what I'm trying to do is train my graduate students on how to be based in academics, but industry ready. How's that? I'm a big industry advocate. I'm a huge industry advocate, but the idea and the idea is learn the fundamentals and then go apply them. And then, like I did, I came here when I was 34. The idea was I came in after I did a bunch of different jobs in academic kind of training to try to put this together. So when I came here, especially as an engineer, right? As an engineer, practical and applied theory. So I think it's good to have some industry experience if you're going to do that. Anyways, with this background, I'm working with 20 students, about 15 undergraduate and 5 graduate students, to try to mentor them. So this is really an interesting challenge that I really enjoy. So I want to share this with you. This lady here, Linda Little, Professor Linda Little, was my first mentor with my first master's degree at Chapel Hill. She was extremely enthusiastic. What I learned from her is enthusiasm. She would be in the lab, participate in the lab, and then she would teach. And then she came running down the hall. I'm in the lab number. She came running down the hall and said, Ron, I found something you can use for your research. So she found in the literature something that we could use for dealing with wastewater back in those days. But her enthusiasm, she rolled up her sleeves and kind of worked with me rather than staying at a distance and say, report to me. Anyways, she was an inspiration And I still connect with her, interestingly enough. For the circle going around, I'm helping one of the students that I'm helping to mentor, who's actually a math major in the math department. I'm working with him and he's helping me to do modeling, but he's interested in going to the East Coast. So I connected my advisor from 40 years ago and said, hey, would you help this guy to find a job in the Research Triangle area? Because she still lives there. And so she invited this person, Gerald Jones is his name. He's here getting a master's in mathematics under Dr. Zhao. Anyways, she invited him to come and she's helping him to find contacts back in North Carolina to interview when he's there for potential jobs. So the idea is sometimes a mentor, you can revisit with your mentor. It doesn't mean you're going to chop it off whenever you graduate. How's that? So that was my first master's. Then this is for my second one in engineering. This is, let's see, so here I show up like some of you do. I got accepted, I applied, I show up, and they say, here's your advisor. And it was great. It was super. It worked out great. After going through that, working a little bit with industry, I thought maybe, I had to investigate a little bit more when I do this again, even though it was perfect. So here, I was in North Carolina and I paid my nickel to fly out to Washington State. I paid my own money. And I told the faculty I was paying my money to come out there because I was serious about a master's and I wanted to talk to the faculty and the students. So that they were really impressed, like, whoa, you're spending your money. I said, yeah, I'm not asking you to pay for me to go out there, but I have a bunch of questions that I want to ask when I come out. I want to talk to the faculty, I want to talk to the students and look at their experiences and ask the faculty, what kind of research they're doing. In other words, in those days, the internet wasn't too available, right, in the 70s. So this was mid 70s, but the idea is to do some homework. So I actually flew out there. It made a good impression on the faculty as well as the students out there. What courses, what kind of advisors, what kind of research is done. And I actually went there. Then I went to Washington State and got a master's in environmental engineering at Washington State. And then I went back and worked with industry in the United Nations and Research Triangle Institute and spent a year looking for a PhD program. So while I was working, I went to North Carolina State and Chapel Hill, and Duke is right there too. And I went to those programs, different programs I was interested in, and actually took a year to put together a PhD program where I interviewed faculty. And in this case, this guy, Michael Overcash, he was a tough one. He was one where other faculty warned me, oh, he's tough. I don't know. He's really hard on the students. They leave when, so that actually intrigued me. It was crazy. I went, okay, let's go talk to this guy. So I went and talked to him, just a brilliant guy. And he kind of said, this is what I'm going to lay down. You're not allowed to get a job if you work for me. And if you come here, you have to minor in mathematics or you don't work for me. So, buddy, he was really, I was very impressed. Let's put it that. He was aggressive, but he was impressive. So I thought, let me take this guy on. I'm going to try to do 10 times more than he expects. I'm going to take this on. And what happened was we had two PhD students working for him together at the same time. But I was the only one who got out in 10 years. And I got out in 3 years, but the only one who graduated from this guy in 10 years. Everybody was telling me, no, he's vicious, he's terrible. But what he was is he had really high expectations. And from going to work in industry, I had bosses that had high expectations. I went, whoa, you had some tough bosses. So I was not intimidated by that, but I was curious about it and then interrogating him. What do you want? What do you expect? And he was very good about that. Minor, mathematics, don't work. And here's kind of the things I'd like you to take a look at, and then it's up to you. He said, I'll give you enough rope basically to hang yourself. So I took this on. I thought, I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work, okay, but I'm going to take a risk. I'm a risk taker. So I did. And then it turned out he was a wonderful mentor. He was really, really brilliant. How about this? I started in September and he was writing a book. And he gave me the book like the week before Thanksgiving, and he said, after Thanksgiving, I want you to edit this book and you give me back comments and you have 1 week to do it. So I spent my Thanksgiving vacation going over his book. Now, the book was great because I learned a lot. That was his kind of book he was putting together. But when we came back the next week, I gave him a fistful of comments, a whole bunch of comments about not so much your book is bad, but here's what I read and here's what I suggest and here's what I couldn't understand. So we started to get along really well. We started to understand each other. So the deal was learning about your advisor in an aggressive way, but not something that is offensive. You have to kind of get involved with, especially at the PhD level, master's level is also really good to do that. So based on these three, I want to share some experiences, 3 different types of personalities, 3 different people. Finding a mentor, what an ideal mentor should be like. From my perspective here, what a student should look for and expect from a mentor. How about mentee expectations? When you walk in, a lot of times for the first one, hey, I'm just here, what do you want me to do, right? But here, what we can do is share, what do you expect you to do as a mentee? That's what I learned when I got my master's and PhD. Like, wait a minute, there's some expectations from my advisor on what I do. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to behave? You don't know that most of the time, except now we can talk about that. And so it's very important that you have some idea of your own expectations and don't expect just to be given an assignment and then you complete that and the next assignment, then you get your PhD or master's. So we want to look at that, what successful mentor-mentee interactions can look like. This is a connection, I call it. This is a relationship with your master's advisor, with your PhD advisor. It's a relationship. So if you have a successful relationship or connection, I'll call it, what does that look like? So we're gonna, this is informal, we're gonna talk about some takeaway things you can walk away with, what you can do in terms of your own expectations, where you can come up with ways to interrogate or talk to your potential advisor and like interview them, okay? You can interview them with the idea, if we have successful interactions, what does that mean? So when you walk out of here, your next steps for your advisor, I'm going to give you a list, kind of some ideas for what you might do to get the connection, to get the relationship with your advisee or your mentor. Then the results of that, let's take a look at that. So you okay with what we're up to? All right. So now we can fly by. Okay, what's the role of a mentor? So right here, a mentor is an experienced and trusted advisor. So trust is huge. Trust, a tutor, a coach, trust is the most important. You have to trust your advisor has to trust you. Hey, great. Let's see. Okay, and we're almost there.
This one?
Yeah, there, one more back, one more. One more, let's see, we're going backward there. Okay, right there. Okay, we're good. Yeah, Rachel.
Sorry, I was trying
So
to.
no, the role of a mentor may share with the mentee or information about his or her own career path. So talking, ask your advisor, what's your career path? What's your experience? It's okay to ask that, to understand. You understand more about your advisor, and the more understanding, the better. And then a mentor provides guidance, motivation, role modeling. So you can ask your advisor, okay? You can ask, what's your advisor's motivation, right? What motivates your advisor to be involved? Provide guidance. You can ask your advisor for guidance. You can say, I'm new, I don't have a lot of experience. Can you give me some tips, some guidance, information, or tips? Which is good. Help with exploring careers. You can also ask that from your advisor. What kind of careers would your advisor be aware of that could maybe tune you into where to look, setting goals? You can ask your advisor, okay, let's work out what are the goals the advisor expects you to do. Developing contacts. Can your advisor help you develop contacts, especially as you go through your program? For instance, an advisor can say, we want you to go to a meeting, professional meeting, and we want you to network. We want you to meet people so that you can make these contacts. So in the future, those open up job possibilities and contacts, and identifying resources. You don't know as much, perhaps, as your advisor, what kind of resources are available out there that your advisor can tune you into, especially now with the internet, and people that your advisor knows. Networking from your advisor that can network you into people that your advisor knows. So you can broaden out your, it's called networking. How to find a mentor. Sometimes an advisor is not necessarily a mentor. Sometimes you have an advisor. Advisors, lay down the rule. This is what you need to meet. These are the courses. This is what I want you to do. Sometimes a mentor is someone else you find who takes more of a interest role in your professional development. They don't have to be the same. So in my case, the three turned out to be mentors, but I had other faculty that were mentors too. So other faculty that I found that would share with me, and I go to them too for advice. So it's not only your advisor, but you might find other faculty that can be mentors. They give you advice in a different direction. Not necessarily straight down the line of coursework and requirements, but look for, a mentor that could be your advisor, but not only restricted to an advisor, can be other faculty and other people. Be proactive in seeking individuals and asking questions. A lot of times students are reticent, not quite sure. It's like our freshmen in engineering, they're scared to death to come up and talk to the faculty. So we have to kind of encourage them. But here, if you're proactive, faculty generally like that. Generally, here, email and office visits. Email them, ask them for an office visit. Go try to visit with them with a list of questions, right? And a list of your interests and concerns. But the idea is be proactive in going after faculty and advisors so that you say you want to get to know them, you want to understand the research better, you want to understand their interests. So I would say be proactive on that and don't wait for them, or don't wait for your advisor to say, okay, we need to meet, right? You go after your advisor and say, so let's meet. What kind of frequency do you want to meet? How often? What do we do for an agenda? In other words, somebody in charge, the advisor or mentor goes, whoa, we've got somebody who's proactive, and you're actually helping them help themselves. So there's some ideas for being proactive, I call it. So in research, these are kind of the connection with your advisor or mentor. These are words or connectors. Okay, here's Einstein, right? I like this one, the speed limit, the speed of light. So imagination. Advisors usually like students, especially graduate students, that have imagination, that show, okay, what if we did this? They're kind of what if, dreams, initiative, as I'm talking about, take the initiative, go after your advisor, come up with questions or a list or wanting to meet. Inspiration, the idea is it's a cycle. Your advisor inspires you and you inspire your advisor. So you set up this connection, I keep calling it. Search again, that's research. All right, so I did my own interpretation of research, and I always tell my students, research meets search again. So in other words, go back to the lab and do it again. That's just part of, so I have my own definition of research. But then the students start seeing, okay, you go back and do it again. That's part of it. You're being encouraged. You're not being discouraged, or you're not being criticized, but you're doing your best. You go back and do it again. And that's why I call this fail forward, is the trust in your advisor. You're going to fail on lots of stuff. The deal is, do you have a trust with your advisor so you can say, I really screwed that up. I messed that up. But then when calling it forward is, well, here's what I'm going to do so I don't fail the next time. That way you build a trust with your advisor. The advisor then never has to worry, am I getting accurate data? Are you telling me that everything looks so good? Sometimes they can get suspicious. So the deal is, if you're really honest, you're going to mess it up periodically. But if you build this trust, it's going to be, you're always going to have corrective action. Yeah, I messed this up. Why do you think that's screwed up? Well, I'm going to go back and do these things to try to that, what I call fail forward. So you fail, but you fail forward. And I don't criticize my students. I want them to tell me when they fail. I want my students to come in and say, I blew it. And then I go, okay, what did you do? And how come it didn't work out? Now, what are you going to do? And that builds a trust. Then I trust my students and they trust me. I'm not going to say, oh, you failed, you're fired. All right, this is research, folks. We're all involved at graduate level in research, which means we make mistakes. So you have to get into that fail forward mode. So you can go to your advisor and say, I messed this up, or I didn't do this. And then you also have a plan, rather than just saying, well, I'll go back and do it again. No, what are you going to do differently? And then you do it differently, and then you report that back. So this builds what I call trust. So I trust all my students and I encourage them to tell me when they fail. How's that? Then discovery, you're always discovering in research, you're trying to discover new insights, right? Whatever it is. Carl Sagan, right? One of my heroes, lots of people's heroes, research is more than a body of knowledge. You're going to learn that. That's what we call necessary but not sufficient. So you're going to learn that. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe. This is what you get by interacting with your advisor. Skeptically interrogating the universe. You question, you come back and say to your advisor, what if we do it this way? What if we try it that way? How about, would you let me try this? Would you let me try that? And a good advisor is going to say, yeah, go ahead. Try this out and then let me know what happens. Albert Einstein says imagination is more important than knowledge. So the idea in graduate school, you're being creative, you're coming up with new discoveries, you're imagining things and then testing that out. And you're always, not always, but you're bouncing it off of your advisor as well as your colleagues in grad school. You're testing it out. And you can go to your advisor and say, can I bounce this off you? What do you think? Then your advisor can give you, input, feedback, suggestions. And usually then that also builds trust. It's huge way to go. So these are things you guys can do right after this. You can go to your advisor and start talking about, hey, I have an idea for this research. Can I bounce it off you? You can go and start talking about you've been inspired by something you've read, and you can share that with your advisor and say, I would like to pursue this. It's something I've read out there, and I want to try it out either in the lab or theoretically or mathematical modeling or whatever. So you can go do this. And let's see, a couple of other things here. This is the one. Okay, what's an ideal mentorship be like? What a student should look for. If you were a mentor, think about it. If you're the mentor, if you were a mentor, how would you behave? So what kind of preconceived concepts? Let's see, anybody want to comment on how would you behave? Okay, now you're on another hat. You're a mentor and not a graduate student going for a degree, but you got your degree, you're mentoring someone, or you are a PhD student mentoring a master's student, or you're a master's student mentoring an undergraduate. Have you thought about anybody in charge of undergrads? Right, yes. Steve, how do you behave as a mentor to those that you mentor?
I have them do a lot of, I'll show them what to do once and let them ask questions throughout it. And then the next couple of times that they do it, I'll watch them.
Yeah.
And then I try to just ask them questions after they ask me questions.
Yeah.
So if they ask me a question, I'll ask them a question
Yeah.
about why I should know that question and see what they come up with.
Yeah.
And just be supportive when they mess up, because they're gonna mess up a lot.
There you
Just
go.
tell them it's gonna happen.
Yeah. How do you find that works? What's your
It works pretty well,
Take-
actually.
Mhm.
Yeah, the undergrads, we ask them for their feedback all the time, and with these ones, they seem to enjoy the sort of hands-on approach with being free to do independent research, but still having somebody to fall back on and be like, this isn't working, what do we do?
Yeah, and somebody they can trust to fall, and you won't say you're out of the lab.
No,
way.
never,
You
no.
don't throw them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody else have that experience where you're in charge of other people, human beings? Or you're, yes, yeah,
Yeah, so I mentor
great.
a bunch of undergraduate students in our lab for their research. And for me, the biggest thing is being very clear about expectations at the beginning as well as like throughout the process. Because I find that if I'm clear with expectations, then you can adapt kind of the other stuff to the student themselves. But those expectations have to kind of stay regardless of what else is being brought to the table.
Yeah, that's great. So you have a floor of expectations and then you can work with them within that framework.
Mhm.
Yeah, super. And how does it work?
It works pretty well, yeah, and we have, because the students I work with are kind of all over the place, and a lot of them have like recently had kids or stuff and have a lot of other stuff going on, so I found that having that kind of baseline makes it easy, and they know that like I'm expecting them to show up to this meeting, but not necessarily that other meeting, and it seems to work out.
Yeah, so communication, right? Both of you are talking about communication. That's the biggest asset and good aspect if you communicate. And that's the major problem when things go wrong is somebody thinks that you want this or you think they're going to do that. And so there's the communication's all screwed up. So it takes a lot of work on that communication, but the rewards of that, the success is, yeah, really, really good. So that's great. Okay, so we're up to my comments, communicate with the students, that's the first one. Communicate with you guys, we're preaching to the choir. Communicate with students, no matter whether it's your colleagues or especially people that you're in charge of, if you're grad, working with an undergrad or PhD, working with masters or bachelor students. Communicate with students, provide constructive feedback. And I invite my whole group. I meet with my whole group on Monday at 5:30. I meet with 20 of them. We do it by Zoom. So they can come in anywhere if they have, family obligations or they're off traveling. And we say, okay, coach, somebody's having a problem. Everybody plays the coach. Okay, give this person some input, give them some advice. So that the whole group kind of knows what everybody else is. It's a great way to build trust. Plus, it's a great way to provide feedback. And what I tell them is, it's always about failure. This is constructive feedback. All right. So we're not criticizing you. We're getting you used to going in the real world and getting criticized. Yeah, we're helping toughen you up a bit. So don't take it personally because we're not attacking you. We're looking at the concept, the idea, the things that you're trying to do. We're not attacking you. Where it might say, hey, that theory might not be quite so good because. So it's not personal, it stays objective in what is this problem, or what is the design, or what are we trying to do? What are we trying to come up with? Treat the mentee with respect. So that's kind of reinforcing this and foster professional networks. The idea is you'd say, okay, everybody, we're getting ready. You guys produce good information, then we start sending you to professional meetings. So we want to send you to professional meetings. We'll work together to get money from the graduate school. We'll go to Rachel. Rachel, we need money. So professional networks, by doing good work, the student you get rewarded to go to a professional meeting and then start meeting people and then developing your own professional network. So these are all things that require you, which is what you want to do, to take initiative to interact with your advisor, right? You have to be proactive. So here, how to be a good mentee. So this is for all of mentees. I mean, I have teachers too. I have people I report to. I have deans I report to, and they in a way can play mentors to me. So everybody can have a mentor, no matter how long you've been in or how old you are. Show imagination. So here's what you can do. Your walk away list. After you leave here, come up with new ideas. So take it on yourself. I got to come up with something and present it to my advisor and see if the advisor likes it. May or may not. She may or may not like it, but they could give you feedback. And then you're asking for some type of positive or at least some kind of feedback. Show initiative, be proactive, demonstrate inspiration for your work. Show some passion. Go in there with some energy behind your ideas to your mentor, advisor. Establish trust and respect is critical. And you do that by communicating honestly. Then fail forward. As I mentioned, when you fail, bring it up and tell your advisor, tell your mentor, and then show how you're going to move past that, move forward. Ask for feedback. So you can ask for feedback from your advisor kind of constantly. I would tell my PhD advisor, I'm turning in a report to you every month, whether you want it or not, and give me some feedback. Then I actually told the advisor, if you don't give me feedback, I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do in the report. But I wasn't being negative. I was being, hey, I want your feedback. And if you give me feedback, I'll use that for the next month. So monthly report. So now I have my grad students turn in monthly reports and I tell them, if I don't give you feedback, keep going. That gives me the responsibility to read your report. And I have to make sure that I take the time to read it and give you feedback. You can bring that up to your advisor and say to your advisor, I would like to give you a monthly report on what I'm doing. What I plan to do for the month, what I did, what I'm going to do next month. And I would just like to give that to you. And you're welcome. I'm not requiring you, but if you give me feedback, I sure would appreciate it. So there's some initiative you can walk out of here with and do. And then join a professional society is the other one. Ask your advisor, ask your mentor. Is there a professional society they recommend that you join and join it? Because this shows that you're interested in professional development. So you can do that and walk out of here, communicate in as many ways as possible. So go visit your advisor in the office, go into the lab, go send emails, go give monthly reports, go ask to go to professional meetings. Then your advisor goes, wow, I really got a student on fire. I've got a mentee who's really on fire. And you'll get their attention. And also, you help your mentor to be successful. When I took the job, when I was here for 3 months and grad students were driving me crazy, I was trying to figure out what to do. I called the head of the department at that time and said, give me some advice. What do I do? And he said, Ron, you're going to build your reputation on the backs of your students. So be nice to them, but they're going to build your reputation with you. So when you're pleasantly aggressive, you're helping your mentor to be successful. Make sense? You might not realize that, but your mentor has to generally get tenure, promotion to full professor. They have to get some good results on a grant to get another grant to support you. So you want to help your mentor to be successful. Then your mentor helps you to be successful. So that's something you can walk away.
I think someone from the chat might, or someone from Zoom might have had a question.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
If that person wants to unmute themselves and ask, I was older.
yeah.
Maybe not, okay.
Can't hear. That's okay. If they come back, we'll try to come up with their, we'll try to come up with something to respond. Successful, now this is what the interactions look like. So this is what you guys are looking for this successful mentor, mentee, making contributions and discoveries. You're doing it with your advisor, with your mentor. You're involved in making contributions that show up in referee publications with your name on it and your advisor or your mentor. And then professional development, by watching your mentor, you're learning how to behave professionally. So the idea is your mentor is also developing professionally because they're advancing in grants or in promotion or recognition. So, and then leadership, you're learning how to be a leader. So it's hard work, but it's something you find out. Biofeedback, you're learning how to lead by being proactive. So leadership, mutual success. Then the mentee goes through a metamorphosis, a transformation, I say, that's qualitative as well as quantitative. So yes, you're going to come out with a body of knowledge. You're going to learn lots of facts. You're going to learn how to do skills. Definitely, those are critical. But you'll learn also qualitatively how to behave. How do professionals behave? What do they do when you go to conferences? How do they interact with each other? So you learn qualitatively how to communicate with other professionals. This is what you watch yourself, and after you finish a master's or PhD, you're a qualitatively different person in addition to quantitatively different. So I go back to this, it's a way of thinking, skeptically interrogating the universe. You learn a different way to think in graduate school, because now, as I tell my undergrads, you're not just going for an answer, but you're trying to figure out what the question is and how you're going to frame a question, then how you're going to approach that question, or what are you going to do about it? So you're learning a way of thinking that makes it not just that you took 5 more courses or whatever, but you're a fundamentally different qualitative person because of the way you think. All right. Then mentee learns about being a mentor. So you watch your advisor, you watch others, you watch mentors, advisors, you watch how they behave, and by watching others, you learn how either you want to adopt that or you want to change. I don't like the way this advisor did it, I'm not going to do that. But you need a basis of experiences in order to pick who you want to be. So you learn about being a mentor. And as you go through the program, you usually don't think about it, but you go through a master's, PhD, how are you learning to be a mentor? What kind of boss are you going to be? What kind of mentor are you going to be? So it causes some self-reflection, which is good. Then the mentor gains experience as a mentor. As we've all gone through academics, we learn. Your mentors are learning too. You know, they're students in that way also. It's not like, oh, they know all the rules and everything, they're perfect, but they're working on being a mentor, and you're actually helping them to be a better mentor. So I'm back to these again. The idea that you are proactive and you show your mentor advisor you have imagination, right? You take that on, you show you have initiative. I'm going to give you a monthly report. I'm going to give you a monthly report, and if you give me back feedback, or if you don't, that's okay. But I'm going to organize monthly. Inspiration. You show your advisor you're inspired. How's that? by having passion. Search again, you showed that you can do things over and over again. That's kind of gonna be what you're gonna do in research. How many times do you repeat things? But you take this on as, all right, this is part of being a graduate student, is that you search again. And you can still, you're gonna be times when you're depressed, like, oh, this is not working. But you don't give up. You go, yeah, I know this is hard. And by going back at it, you learn how to deal with frustration, right? Know the FA hypothesis, frustration, aggression. So you'll find yourself getting aggressive, but that's okay. You could say, you know what, I get aggressive. Well, what are you gonna do with that? How are you gonna deal with that? But if you don't have these experiences, you don't grow. Then discovery. So you're all out to write papers, right? You're all out to get promoted, write papers, advance whatever discipline you're in, right? So you're an active participant. So we go back to this. I go back to Carl Sagan. It's more than a body of knowledge. I call this necessary, but not sufficient. It's a way of thinking. And you skeptically interrogate the universe with confidence with your advisor. And then Albert Einstein, imagination is more important than knowledge. Okay, so there are some things to do, walk away with, and so I don't know if we have time. Melanie, we need to let you get up here and talk. I don't want to.
Let's take questions for the end.
Okay, we'll take questions for the end, discussion over some food.
Perfect.
So, Dr. Rodriguez, I need to let you up here. So we have the microphone and chat. Yeah. We have
This one,
different ways to do this.
and then that just have the button on top.
Stay connected. Stay connected, everybody, with your advisor.
Perfect. Well, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thanks for all your insights and
Yeah, I'll stay right here. I'm gonna hang up.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Is this mic working? So thank you so much. I was taking notes because I'm here. The nice thing about a university job is that when you are into lifelong learning, you really get to engage with that every single day. And I think if we had been paired on purpose, it wouldn't have been so seamless. You describe mentorship as a relationship that is personal, lifelong, that are provided by multiple people, between people that have specific strengths and challenges. And it's bi-directional, which is a reminder that you also have strengths and challenges, where there are mutual expectations and mutual inspiration. And so I think if I had done the bird's eye view, mine would have looked a lot like yours, which is really, really cool. And I was probably particularly flabbergasted by the fact that you connected so much with trust, because that is fundamental. So what I wanted to do when I saw that person's PowerPoints, I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna get all the good stuff. And so I can go be a psychologist. I'm a psychologist by training. I am a researcher. It's absolutely a passion of mine. And I'm also a licensed clinician. And so I train folks who are sometimes going to be researchers and we have a grand time in the lab. Sometimes I train people that are going to be clinicians and they are going to go out into communities and they are going to make incredible contributions to reducing health disparities and access to culturally appropriate and effective mental health services for people of all kind of walks of life. And I also train, and I'm very passionate about training folks who love pedagogy. And so if you look at my research, I have actually strands in research in all three areas, because if you can go into a classroom and change hearts and minds, you are changing society too. And so we do that in the therapy room. We certainly do it in the lab, but we also do it in the classroom. And so if you look at what I do in the classroom, one of my classes that I love teaching is an undergraduate multicultural psychology class. And I have a whole evaluation pre and post. If you take that class, I'm going to give you some measurements at the beginning. They're connected to the constructs that we're discussing in class. I'm going to ask you about your ethnocultural empathy. I'm going to ask you about your colorblind racial attitudes. And if you want to know about these things more deeply, I'm happy to unpack them. Maybe a little too happy to unpack them for your Monday afternoon energy. But I'm going to ask students at the beginning of the semester, because I care about teaching evaluations, right? I care that you like me. I dressed up for you today. Hope you enjoyed that. But I care more that you are picking up on the things that we are talking about, that you're moving your hearts and minds in the ways that we want to move them, right? And so then I give you an evaluation at the end. And what I do with it, we publish on it, but what I really do with it, the primary purpose of that is to then give it back to you as a student in the class and say, what do you think about how you grew and changed over the course of this class? Was that cool? Are you disappointed? Would you report at Thanksgiving dinner to your family on how you grew in these directions that may be actually growing away from the values of your family? And so that is an important context, because my sort of playground is not necessarily just the research lab. And it really informs my approach and my values as a mentor, right? I think each of us sort of mentors people across different professions to different ends. And what I thought I would do is, rather than kind of take you all over the planet with all of those different activities, which can maybe be overwhelming and even possibly not very interesting or relevant to you, I thought I could sort of go deeper in three main areas, and that is clarity of expectations for yourself, fit in mentorship, and I do want to talk about culture. Because all of us are cultural beings that live in a cultural context, and academia itself is its own culture. And I think we need to talk about that in the context of mentorship. So I thought I'd focus on three main things. Now, I know that there are a lot of folks over Zoom, and is there a way to meaningfully gain their participation? Are you checking the chat? And would you please flag me? I enjoy being interrupted. I can stand up here and do a song and dance and go home feeling like I did something awesome. But I much prefer for you to jump in if you're having a thought or a question. I actually would rather hear from you than hear myself. And if you had ever taken a class with me, you know why that is. So I was looking at y'all as sort of the meat in the middle, right? You are mentors and mentees, what Dr. Sims also mentioned. And so you're getting mentorship and you're becoming mentors. And at times that can be a tight squeeze, like this is a lot. But what's really cool about it, if you're a psychologist like me and you like this kind of interpersonal process and examining it, is you're in the middle of these parallel processes, right? You're getting something that you're also giving. And so every lived experience in every domain can help inform the experiences that you're having in other domains. I think that's super cool as a psychologist, because then you're sort of constantly learning and making meaning and having opportunities to make adjustments across different settings. And that is awesome fodder for growth. So I had a question for all of you. I have 4 questions. So I'll put them out there and then you can think about them and see which one sort of strikes you. What is a good mentor to you? How many mentors do you have? What are specific helpful things that your mentor or mentors do? And what are the not so helpful things that your mentor or mentors do? Okay. So what is a good mentor to you? How many mentors do you have? What are the helpful things that your mentors do? And what are the unhelpful things that mentors do? What's a good mentor?
Quite often I just feel like there are a lot of dimensions of every personality, but a person who's got my back is a good mentor for me.
Yes.
Because like if things go okay, everyone's gonna cheer you, but if things don't go as planned, that's when you want that person to have your back.
And things so often don't go as planned, don't they? So a person that has your back, and what does it mean to have your back?
Like if things, like I have seen students especially struggle a lot with especially we talk about failures, and when a student fails, they know they screwed up and they're gonna get a backlash from multiple sources. The backlash should not be from your mentor.
Yeah.
They should like tell you how to go out of it, and how to fix the problems instead of telling you you screwed up.
So you, in a way, are saying, I want to be able to fail forward and count on you to help me grow from that, right? Which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I need to have a space in which I know that I can talk about this thing that happened and find support and guidance around it. really beautiful because you've heard two seasoned mentors talk about trust. And you're talking now about trust from your direction as well. I need to trust you to be able to help me in this process. What's a good mentor to you? Anybody in the chat?
Not yet.
I see y'all. There are 3 new messages since I last saw up there. Writing something. Wherever you are. Bubble.
Is a good mentor be somebody, if you can have that conversation, because everybody comes into grad school, like in our lab, we have somebody who's 22, and then I'm 33. And I worked for 8 years before going to college.
Sure.
So it'd be nice in a mentorship for them to recognize what your goals are. So I get you need time to grow and develop and to have these interpersonal thoughts and work on these dynamics. But addressing like what students at where and how quickly they can get out, that would be appreciated, because some people do need 6 years. Sometimes projects don't work, but others might be ready to leave sooner. And having that flexibility to be like, okay, this student's driven, this student needs to get out. Let's just push them through real quick and go back to the ones.
Yeah, so developmental context matters. And each student's individual goals matter.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things are informing each other, but maybe sometimes not.
Yeah.
As a woman in academia, it breaks my heart to share with you that on multiple occasions, I have had women come to me and say, can I consult with you? I really would like to have family, and I think I'm going to be punished if I do that in this context.
Yeah.
And as I tell you that, which is like, you know, from 20 something years being here, right now I can feel my what is that, chicken skin? I'm very eloquent right now talking about this. You know, like it is so painful for me to hear that being in grad school might mean that you are not able to sort of embrace your life fully, look at the goals that you have for life more broadly, and talk freely about that, right? That developmentally, if you're in your 30s and your clock is ticking and you want to be a parent, that you feel like you can't do both things for some reason, right? Can we really be flexible in what we're doing here to accommodate these different goals, some of which may be professional and some of which may be personal? And so getting a little bit ahead to the culture part, right? We all have these dimensions of identity, and sometimes they're not a good match. And the problem is not necessarily the people that have the need, but the way that structures have been created. So I would encourage you to think about these. Thank you so much. And nobody online?
No, we have a couple people. We have.
All right.
Online.
Yeah.
They can go ahead and unmute themselves and ask their questions. Or share their experiences.
I get to hear voices. This is good. I'm like, we're sorry, I moved. Sorry. There.
Can they hear the people in the audience?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to say that a mentor is someone who is interested in my academic progress, someone who wants to see me succeed, and someone who, you know, is happy to like support me even when I'm doing things wrong. Someone who is like happy to like point me in the right direction when I'm not doing something right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So really connected, I think, to what you said early on, that failing forward and making sure that that person has your back and that they want to see you succeed. I think there's something about the way you're speaking and the words that you're using that is really pointing me to think about joy. And when I think about mentorship, for me, it's a really joyful process. Like you're connected with a person, you really care about them. And there's this real joy when people succeed, right? It's like, these are my peeps and look at them go, like they're flying, this is amazing. And one of the things that I tell my students, for better or worse, they put up with me, it's incredible. I say, I don't want you to be just like me, I want you to be better. And so I don't know how to do that, but that's my expectation of you. Like you need to be better than me because I graduated in 1999. I've been in this position since the fall of 2000. And like, you need to do better. Like, you need to do better than somebody that graduated 20 something years ago, right? So let's figure out how to do that together. And there's a real joy in that process where you can grow together and really be excited about seeing somebody do well. So thank you for that. And thank you for unmuting and bringing the online people in. I love that. Yeah.
Got some comments too. So I just got my first mentor last semester, and after many years of being in the field of domestic violence policy and kind of like forging my own path, I guess. My mentor is one of the first people I've come across that really kind of inspired enough trust in her that I could kind of talk about my goals and what I was working for. And she has really kind of helped me form what I want to do with it, and help support me so that I can get to where I'm trying to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are so, like, the themes here are clear, right? I've heard 4 voices, and I know there are, we have like 25 people here. And I'm already hearing themes, right? Has my back, is happy to see me grow, inspires me. Like, there's a lot of this positive valence. And I would just encourage you to think about, is that theme of positive valence and what a good mentor is that what you're experiencing, right, in your own lives? And if not, then how can you get closer to that? And so this first point is a lot. I'm trying to be mindful of time.
You're good. It's 3:30, so we have a half hour.
Okay. So that first point about clear expectations is really to invite you to think about, what is it that you want? What would be ideal? Go ahead and think about that for yourself as a mentee and for yourself as a mentor, right? In whatever context you're in, and be really clear for yourself about what you want. So you can communicate it to your mentors. You've got 2 mentors right here who are both telling you, tell me, I want to know. Because I'm going to give you what I think, right? You come to my house for dinner. I'm going to give you maybe like, this could really happen, like rice and red beans and some pork on the side and some tostones. This is a traditional Puerto Rican dish. And I had a student show up with a pork allergy. Like, you don't know what you don't know, right? You got to say what it is that you want and need, and then negotiate with the person that you're working with to see if it's something that they can give or cannot give. And so what happens if they cannot? That's what my next question was about, right? I have never assumed and have never been able to, so it's good that I didn't assume it, be all things to all people. So I assume and encourage my students from the moment they come in to find multiple mentors. Like, take what I can give you and run with it. And the way that you get to be better than me by the time you leave here is by growing with other people as well. And by combining what you're learning from multiple people to then become your best, unique, wonderful self that is going to be, you know, a presence in the field unlike any other. And so knowing what you want and what you need allows you to connect with the person that you're working with, but also then allows you to start thinking about who else I need in my team, right? And for me as a mentor, for me as a mentor, that's also true in the other direction, right? I've had some students that wanted to do things with statistics that I simply don't have a capability to do. I know conceptually what they wanted to do. I was super excited about it. I thought it was fantastic. And I said, okay, we need like 2 or 3 more people on our team. And we got those people on board, and I helped make those connections, and I encouraged and fostered them. When I was writing a paper, we then invited that other person to also participate in the paper so they could be sort of part of the team. And so that's what that other question is about, right? It's very connected to expectations, and that then you're set up to start looking for what you want and need for your career. Nobody's going to know that better than you. And part of that is you cannot possibly know everything you want and need from day one. And so to the degree that you connect with different people and you do this exercise over time, then you clarify for yourself what you want and need. Totally fine. If you left graduate school with the same expectations as the day you walked in,
yeah, missed something somewhere along the way, because this place and space is all about growing and changing.
So this is, I think, clarity of expectations. I will spare you mine. I have been known on occasion to offer my students really high quality sneakers so they can chase me around because I'm out of doors chasing squirrels. Most of them are very patient and text me and email me and call me and do things like text me to say I sent you that email just in case the email gets lost. I'm always very grateful. I love that. I hate that people have to be in that position, but I'm super grateful for it. So then let's go to the fit. I think in addition to what you want and what you need, a big part of mentorship is fit. And so if you go to my website and you want to do this as an example, one of the things that I do is I have a mentorship statement on my website. I've developed it over time. I've developed it really carefully. Here's what I can give you. Here's what I'm not so good at. Here are my growth edges. I'm working on those. Been working on them for a quarter century. It's gonna take me a hot minute to get to the edge. So just know that this is what's happening. So the big question that I would have you think about in terms of fit. This is the place and space where I would like you to think about values. What are your mentorship values? And your mentorship values are not the same as your goals, and they're not the same as your behaviors. What do you value in mentorship? And if you're me 20 years ago, I actually had to like look up values to see what the distinction between one thing and the next thing was. So can you think of what are things that you value in mentorship? And you already gave us trust. So we have that. What else do you value?
Challenge without judgment. Push you to grow, but not judgmental.
Okay. So you want critical growth oriented feedback. Yeah, you want
Respect.
compost, composting, intellectual compost.
Respect.
Respect. What does that look like?
For me, and being the woman in STEM fields, like a lot of times your ideas are not as much credited as they should be. And I like come into this field like having that thing in mind, and I needed to feel being respected for who am I, for my background, for the value I add to the group and the research, and not being seen in like different lights or dimensions than just being respected for the researcher or the person I am.
So I'm gonna ask you to check me to see if I'm understanding you, because you're hitting on something that I get very passionate about. And so if I take it in a different direction, just go, hey, nah, it's understood me. Culture, which is the third point, and I made it the third point so it wouldn't take over, and I can't help it. I still need to go there. We value diversity, right? We value diversity and we value inclusion. And then when it comes time to enact those values, we are constantly failing. Constantly failing. We brought students into the Department of Psychology and we wanted ethnic diversity, and we got diversity comes in all kinds of different dimensions. We can all got that, but for right now, I'm going to focus on ethnic diversity. And all of a sudden, we had a bunch of students interested in microaggressions, and we had students interested in ethnic identity development, and we had students interested in ethnic matching and psychotherapy. And sometimes, not very often, thankfully, most of the time it was wonderful, and we've grown, and I think we really make a unique contribution to the campus in this regard. But every now and then they would walk into a space and it'd be like, that's not a real variable. Yeah, you know, that's fine if you want to do that work like extra on the side, but in this class, you need to read this stuff and focus on this. Or, you know, we love that we have bilingual clinicians, but then we don't have the measurements that you can use to do your assessments in your language of origin, which was the thing that we were celebrating and super excited about to have you here. And so we have these structures that where we value, right? We value diversity and we value inclusion, but then our behavioral commitments and our enactments are way short of those values.
Is this where you were going, or did I just run away with your point and
Kind
she
of
did
like
something
similar.
else? Is this, you're like, you ran away with it, but I'm like, I'm with you.
I'm just trying to like put a lot of ideas and dimensions in a very small thing. So yeah, you're fine.
Okay, so it covers some of it, but maybe not all of it. I think respect is a big one. I think respect is a big value and sort of what that looks like. That's why I asked, what does that look like for you? Because what it looks like for each person in what context can be really different. For some people, respect is really clear boundaries, right? My home is my home. You do not text me after 5 o'clock, or I put my phone on mute. For other respects is like bringing up personal things where they come up, because that way I can know fully where you're coming from. And so you can have the same concept that we call respect look really different across different people. So we have values of respect, we have values of trust, we have values for intellectual compost. Yes.
So I just going along with like the respect and the culture is, especially in the STEM field, their life was hard. Therefore, your life has to be hard. They didn't have room for mental growth and personal time. They had to work on the weekends. Therefore, you have to work on the weekends. Even though we've developed as a culture and an understanding of mental health and how to treat people and everything else, in practice, that's not really seen that often. And then especially with international students, that's something I found difficult, is watching the mentorship and menteeship of international students and how that's kind of taken a hands-off approach by faculty I've seen here, where it's, oh, they're international students, they can have their own code of ethics. Even if they don't match with what our code of ethics is, that's okay. So I want to see more of an inclusion, a full inclusion of international students across like both faculty working with them and students interaction.
So it seems to me like you're speaking to kind of potentiating the benefits of diversity, right? So you bring in a really diverse student body, and then there's the
kind of ignore it. Like we bring it in and
then it's not like really incorporated.
Yeah.
So what are ways in which that would be incorporated? What are optimal ways to enact inclusion in ways that you think would be productive? Because the value there is inclusion, right?
Yeah.
Like, diversity is fine, but we need to be inclusive.
yeah, that's the part I'm struggling with. I don't know if that comes from like interactions between the faculty members themselves, as well as students interacting with international students. I don't know if it's different events. What we've been trying in our department is just inviting them to different events and learning about their culture.
Right.
But I'm not really sure how that works. This is something that I've wanted to see change. I'm not an international student, so I can't speak specifically, but in dealing with international students in our department, that's what I've seen.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Just kind of what it sounds like both of you are saying to some degree is mentors should believe that each of their mentees can bring meaningful change and contribution that's unique to their field of study, regardless of any biases that the mentor might have. Every student, they should believe, can be an agent for change and can just meet those expectations. That it sounds like sometimes mentors allow biases to take over that belief a little bit, and then they don't show that belief in your potential as much as they might to other students. I don't know if that's kind of.
Yeah, and there's I guess jumping over to specific behaviors a little bit. One thing that jumps out from what I'm hearing from you is that there is an existing structure and then people are invited into that structure, which I would just invite you to think about the directionality of that, sort of like, where's the gravity and like, where's the expected pull? And maybe that's something to consider. Maybe everybody needs to sort of take a step back and have a broad conversation and say, what does this space need to be for all of us to feel like everybody has a little part of it, right? That we all kind of belong and can grow and thrive in this space. And that is the thing about, I think that's the thing about any space that is a longstanding institution, right? There's this,
I mean gravity, like in the sense of the word, right? Like, you have this sort of gravity for how things tend to move, and you've got psychological grooves in the way that people behave and interact that are based on prior experience. But if we want to grow and transform, then we need to get out of those grooves and do something different. Yeah.
Habiba, go ahead.
Sorry, I keep thinking that's.
Hi, I just wanna add some comment, maybe some may answer all the questions and the last question. So one thing I would say, a good mentor is like the one have kind of direct relationship to the student, like ongoing schedule, like deadlines and schedule, because sometimes as a student, we feel like it's pressure, but it's not. So that helps you move ahead and learn more. Like if you have weekly meeting, your advisories, so that helps with a lot of relationship, because you're seeing every week, whether it's Zoom or whether it's physical. So then you become very, very close, because I don't think any advisor or mentor kind of don't care their students, but sometimes things can happen, and the more connected you guys, the ongoing schedule is helping a lot of feedbacks back and forth. Yes, there will be challenges. There are a lot of things we don't do good, and then when they guide you, it's better than sometimes you stuck. You expect that they guide you and they may not, but sometimes it's like you have to dig more, and I had that experience. So at the beginning you don't like, you say like, what shall I do? I mean, and all that, and then when you dig more research, more then you learn new things, and then later you say like, oh, that was good, like they didn't accept what I did at the beginning, because now I learn all of this knowledge. So that is the part of I will say the good mentor. The other part I would like to jump as well as the international. I'm international student, though I'm here almost 30 years, but still I didn't change much of my culture. I kind of relate newly international students. They shy, sometimes like American kids, they are very brave. Now, for me, there are things I can talk, but when I was doing my master's, a lot of things happened to me. I experienced it. I wish to reverse those days. So, and through time and experience, you learn. But I love when the advisors and mentors, they both time themselves is like knowing their student, what culture they came from, what their expectation. A lot of them, they have no clue. And then if that relation doesn't happen, it's frustration to both sides. Not they are bad advisors or bad students, but the connection is not there. I wish they have to take time and understand more, like when they are new to that students, and say, hey, tell me a little bit more about your culture. What do you think this, because that helps them, because it may reduce some challenges can happen on the way. That's all I want to add. I have a lot to say, but I don't want to take all the time. Thank you.
I have a lot of empathy. I move a lot and I'm like doing the thing. I have a lot of empathy for having a lot to say, and then time is limited. There are three things that I heard that you said that I think are really interesting. And so folks talked about respect, and you mentioned being timely, like actually making time to meet with your students, right? I meet with my students once a week. And if they're busy and meeting their goals or whatever, then we can skip, but most of the time I make that time. Having structured goals, and sometimes that's timelines, but it might be other bigger goals. So structure and timeliness could be values that are connected to your, like what you want from your mentor and your mentees, and being proactive and talking about culture. There are a lot of folks that don't want to do that because they're worried about appearing ignorant and or racist. And that's a fear. That's a fear that people have. This is part of why I teach the courses that I do. And we have to do better. right? But how do you get to potentiate, right, the benefits of diversity if you're not talking about your cultural context? And what better way to make your own culture visible than to understand somebody else's? There is not a better way. If you talk to somebody about their cultural practices, all of a sudden you become very aware of things that you do that you didn't realize were cultural, but indeed are. So it's a missed opportunity for mentors, right? To learn something about not just their students, themselves as cultural beings that can help them moving forward. So there is a lot of richness beyond that summary, but I picked up those 3 values. I would encourage y'all to think about those values some more. And if you go online, like there's literally like lists of values that you could go, and there's 300 values and you can pick through them and pick your top ones. The ones I share with my students are 2, and I name them like this, which is really interesting. I say if we have trust and we have love, we're good. Really weird to use the word love, right? Have you ever talked to your mentor or mentees about love? I talk about love. I'm a psychologist. I could get away with that. I talk about those 2 things. And if we don't have that, something has gone wrong. Something isn't right, because my mentorship is personal. And so if we're not feeling connected personally, something went off the rails on your end or my end or both ends. And we need to talk about that. And the same thing with trust. And so, and that looks like a lot of things. That looks like, you know, I think a lot of that falling forward, there's a lot of trust in that, right? Being able to say, I made this mistake, or I told you I was going to have this week, but it's not ready. And for me to be able to normalize that and say, hey, you missed deadlines? It's fine. This is part of what happens. But if instead you start not showing up and not responding to my emails, and then I'm like, what's happening here, right? And same likewise, if I'm doing that, then I'm avoiding, I'm not really talking to you about what's going on. Now you don't really know what to expect from me because I've gone off the radar. Those things are really trust. And so now that's a very culturally rooted conceptualization, right? To just talk clearly and unapologetically about not having met the deadline. So we can unpack that, but I'm gonna get booed off the stage here for a second. So the reason why I highlight both of these things, trust and love, they're super fundamental to me. And please notice how I didn't say skills. You're coming to grad school to work with me, I'm gonna teach you the skills that you need, or I'm gonna find out who's gonna teach you those skills. But the quality of our relationship and to create a sandbox in which to play in and grow from, that is something that you and I do together. And one of the things that I have my students always expect is that we are gonna have at some point in our relationship a really difficult conversation. A PhD takes anywhere between 4 and 10 years, at least from my students that have graduated. And as 2 human beings that are in contact once a week, if we have never had conflict, we are simply not talking to each other. You know, it's like we have a perfect marriage. So where's your partner? I don't know. Like if we're a week and we are talking, we are gonna have conflict at some point. I'm gonna say something that annoys you. I'm gonna say something that you don't agree with. And frankly, even though I try not to, I might say something that's hurtful. And I'm gonna do my best to apologize for that if and when it comes up, but I have no way of doing that unless I hear about it. And likewise, right? That goes both ways. So for me, those values are the places from which then you build your expectations and your goals with your mentors or with your mentees. So I'm seeing you as stuck in that sandwich. And the last point, which we've talked about some, is that culture matters. And I think really the key pieces of that have come up already. I guess I'll say, I'll give you my questions, and I can give, Rachel, I think I gave these to you, but I'm like, I can put that in a document for people to have. How are you and your mentors' cultural context alike or different? I want you to think intersectionally. I want you to think about sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, skin tone, phenotype. How do these characteristics enhance or detract from your relationship? I would love for you to think about that. And are we running out of time, or can I ask?
We have like 4 minutes, but if we want to go over, we have some more time in the middle.
So that, the thing with that is it butts up against my value of respect, and then if you stay over, then I'm disrespecting your time, so so I'm gonna leave you with that question. And really encourage you to think about that, and some of my most fun and rich moments with my mentees have been in this dimension. And I'll tell you this one story, and then maybe we'll just wrap up there. I had a student of Filipino origin who's like, I don't know, somewhere up there, like super tall, big guy. I'm 5'1". If you haven't noticed, I'm like pretty close to the ground. I'm slender, and so we're at a conference. I love traveling with my students. Conferences are the best because it's sort of professional, but also personal. So we go to dinners and I don't know what, we decided to watch a Sandra Bullock space movie whose title I can't remember. And we're coming out of the movie theater, my beautifully, impressively, physically sort of impressive graduate student, and then me like a little baby that like right, seeking refuge. And there is, I kid you not, this sort of, I don't know, group of 6 to 8 men, most of whom, my recollection is they were white men in sort of a street corner, drinking some beers. And we won't unpack this part, but I like hurled into my student automatically. I don't know why, we can have a conversation different, but I just like curled into him and kind of grabbed his arm, and he looked over and even like straightened and sort of like made himself bigger. I'm like, yes, thank you, please. And we walked through, and he goes, okay, are we going to talk about that? I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to talk about that. And we had this incredible conversation about my stimulus value, his stimulus value, how women walk in the world in different spaces. He's like, okay, you're this tenured professor that walks into faculty meetings like you own the place. Like, don't tell me that you think because you're 5'1", you have no power. And I was like, it was you on the 4th floor of the education building. It's about this big and super vulnerable. And so and then I turned that around, right? I'm like, you are this person who clearly felt very powerful in this moment, but you don't on the 4th floor. What's up with that? And we had an incredible conversation that now many, many years later, we come back to and we chuckle and laugh about it. But shying away from those conversations is such a missed opportunity. And these are, for me in the field of psychology, and given the work that we do, these are all conversations that in one way or another turn out to be very professionally relevant in addition to personally relevant, right? And so I would say, please examine these things. And I would encourage you to think about it. If your mentor or mentors are not folks that are super interested in having these conversations, that's okay. Maybe find a mentor that is, and think about cultivating these conversations with your mentees so that you can be really connecting with the whole person and getting, I think, the richness of that experience of working closely and intimately with somebody in trying to grow something that you both care deeply about, right? It's a very sacred relationship if it goes well. So clear expectations, really good fit when you can. Culture is important. There's a whole lot more, but I wanted to try to go a little bit deeper in some specific areas that I care deeply about. And I'm hoping that you walk away with something useful from those 3 points. So thank you for sharing space, and it's been good to be here. Thank you.